Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. It's not actually called All About ITIL 4, but that's kind of what I've been calling it. We have our very own Curriculum Development Manager, Donna Knapp, who has been remarkably involved in the ITIL 4 for a long time now, including for Axelos. She led the Train the Trainer sessions here, or one of them here in the United States.
So welcome everybody to ITIL 4, the next evolution. I want to first of all give a shout out to the great folks at Axelos who gave us permission to do this presentation today. We're really excited. Up until now, we've kind of been in a position where we weren't really willing or weren't really able, I'm freezing to death. We weren't really able to share details. And today we get to give you a little sneak peek into what's really going on with ITIL 4. So for those of you who are new to ITSM Academy, we're an accredited training organization that focuses on IT service management and agile and DevOps related practices. And you're going to see, as we go through this presentation, you're going to see where we're super excited about ITIL 4 because it really brings together a lot of what we have in our portfolio. It mirrors them all together, and so it really makes perfect sense to us from that standpoint. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set the stage really quickly. I'm going to talk about ITIL 4 concepts. I'm going to talk about the road ahead, and that picture is very intentional. The road ahead is going to be kind of curvy. Sometimes we're not going to be able to see what's around the corner, but that's okay. It's a journey. And we're just going to, sit back and enjoy the ride. And that road actually is in Australia on the way from Sydney to Melbourne. So taken by me. So that was a fun memory to kind of dig out. So let me set the stage for a minute. In fall of 2018, Axelos did an awesome job of organizing Train the Trainer programs to help the ITIL training community get up to speed on ITIL 4 and really just have the opportunity to come together to learn about ITIL 4 concepts and just share, and have conversations about how we were going to work together as a community to help the industry transition from ITIL 3 to ITIL 4. And so Axelos actually introduced the concept of flipping the 4. So that's what you see us doing there. I had the great privilege of doing the class that was held in Washington, D.C. And this is my, extremely talented and, dare I say, feisty group of individuals that participated in the training program that I held. So here's a little tweet opportunity for you going forward. You all can kind of get out there and show your organization's version of flipping the 4 as you go forward. So the training community has been gearing up and continues to gear up to get ready to help everybody make that transition. And this presentation today is kind of a first step in doing that. One of the things that we did in this session is we talked about this idea of the Kubler-Ross change curve and the stages of change acceptance, and the idea that anytime we go through a significant change, everybody, it's human, has to go through these stages of change acceptance, where you kind of go from just being in complete and total denial, like, no, this isn't really happening, to maybe being frustrated if things aren't happening quickly enough, or if you really perhaps don't understand necessarily what's going on. And then it's like, good gosh, this is just going to be huge. It's going to be so hard. And then you start to kind of come around and you start to say, like, hey, this is interesting. There's some interesting concepts here. And then you reach a point, and this is where I am. I'm at the decision point. I'm ready to share my knowledge. I'm excited about this. So I'm going to ask you, and I know you guys have talked about the fact that some of you are really new to this party, but let's just have a little fun here and see, in the context of ITIL 4, where do you think you are on this change curve? and we'll give it a few seconds to see what everybody has to say.
No, I cannot be the only person chuckling at the options you've given us. Oh, and we got lots of, it's 12 degrees. I got one, it was
Yeah,
-1 degree. Yeah.
I know. I'm a whiny little baby.
No,
appreciate that.
It's one of the many idiosyncrasies that we love and enjoy about you. Plus, I will give.
Yeah, anybody who comes and lives in Florida for, over 30 years, your blood does in fact thin out. And all right, so we'll give it just a few more seconds. I love that a significant percentage of you are sitting at that experiment stage. Like you're like, okay, this is interesting. Let me understand better what's going on. But I get it. I've been in the denial. I've been in the frustration. I went through all those other stages. So for those of you that are there, that's okay. It's your journey. And each and every individual kind of goes through it at the same time. So 2 more seconds, I'm going to close the poll. There you go. All right, so just to kind of share where everybody is. Again, whatever your answer is the right answer for you. And we're here to really just kind of help everybody get to that point where you're excited and you're ready to start sharing your knowledge with other people. The way we all learn most effectively is by sharing with others and learning how to answer questions there. All right. So part of setting the stage, I want to talk very briefly. We'll get back to this qualification scheme, but I want to set the stage in terms of the context of the ITIL 4 library. For those of you who have been around for a while, we used to say that ITIL was the, IT information library, and that kind of description of an acronym has been retired, but at the end of the day, ITIL still is in fact a library. And the way the library is going to look going forward is that there's going to be a publication associated with each qualification in the ITIL qualification scheme. And so the first one out of the gate is ITIL 4 Foundation. So ITIL 4 Foundation, the publication is available now on the TSO website for pre-order. We'll be getting it into our bookstore, as soon as we possibly can. And the ITIL 4 Foundation qualification itself goes live on February 28th, the day after my birthday, just in case anybody's wondering. So as we go forward, you're going to see additional books published that represent, create, deliver, and support, drive stakeholder value, right? There will be a book associated with each of these qualifications, and they'll look at, particular aspects of ITIL 4. So that's all I'm going to say about the qualification scheme for now. Let's kind of go and dive into the details and the core concepts of ITIL 4. So first of all, let's talk about why ITIL needed to evolve. And quite frankly, the fact that it's called ITIL 4 tells you this is, the 4th iteration of ITIL. So ITIL, since its inception, 30 years ago, has evolved through the years. It was really critical that ITIL evolve now, because the reality is, and I don't have to explain this to anybody, today, every organization is both a service provider and a service consumer. We all, in some way, shape, or form rely on, for example, some type of cloud-based service in order to run our businesses and perhaps even to build the services that then we provide to our customers. Every organization's services are IT enabled. You're really hard pressed today to find organizations that aren't using IT in some way, shape, or form. And in fact, for a lot of organizations, going back to paper would be crippling for the organization. Real lives would be lost, real dollars would be lost, right? We rely on that technology. And the technology is changing constantly. Some of you have heard me say this before. I think I've said, wow, more in the last 5 years of my career based on just cool stuff that I can do on my iPhone versus, the 20 plus years that I was in the industry before that, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. So things like cloud computing, things like machine learning, things like infrastructure as code, all these things that kind of remove the physical barriers associated with delivering services are kind of accelerating our ability to deliver services faster and evolve and innovate on those services more quickly. And oh, by the way, the consumer expectations to do that and to do it very, very quickly are ratcheting up as well. So IT service management is very much a key strategic capability. We like to say that the what and the why of IT service management hasn't changed. Delivering quality services, providing value to your customers, having a customer-oriented focus within your organization will always serve you well and will serve you very, very well as we go forward. It's really the how that has to change. So ITIL needed to evolve in order to reflect that reality. Very quickly, if you look at ITIL 3 2011, and I commented to someone the other day, with the introduction of ITIL 4, we've kind of gotten into this habit of saying ITIL 3 versus ITIL 4. And the reality is we've got 2011 sitting in the middle there. So if you hear somebody talk about ITIL 3, just put the / 2011, next to it. If we look at the service life cycle that was introduced in ITIL 3 / 2011, it reflected the life cycle of services, sort of, right? There were actually some gaps in there. So we had service strategy, where we were understanding demand and analyzing demand and figuring out what services we needed to have in our portfolio. We had service design. We had a little bit of a gap, right? In terms of building or developing those services. I kind of intentionally put a little magic wand there. It's like, and then some magic happens. And then we're able to transition and ultimately run those services. And it's kind of a shame that that gap existed, because it's in that gap that a lot of really cool things were happening. So in organizations, we were seeing the introduction of agile development practices, leveraging lean practices. We saw DevOps emerge over the last 10 years and very much become a critical capability for organizations today. And we're also seeing, we've seen in the last 5 or so years, and we're seeing site reliability engineering emerge as a critical capability for organizations. Now, it's not to say that those practices only lived in the development sides of our organizations. Certainly we saw those practices evolving to other parts of the organization. But we also see where today we see organizations where the company says they're doing DevOps, and I did use air quotes there, and the ops side of the house isn't engaged at all in that conversation about DevOps. So those practices kind of have their roots in software development specifically, but they really are very much making their way out into other parts of the organization. Enterprise agility, right, is becoming increasingly important. Lean, the introduction of lean principles and practices, is really very much being recognized as something that IT can take advantage of. In fact, it was what our webinar was about last month. DevOps certainly is here to stay and continues to evolve itself. So there were some little gaps, right, in ITIL 3. The other gap being on the consumption side. While we talked about the fact that customers have responsibilities in the context of things like service level agreements, we weren't necessarily as good as we need to be going forward at capturing consumer feedback, at things like customer experience and user experience, and making sure that throughout the IT value chain, we're capturing that feedback and very, very quickly, right, passing it back through that life cycle. So we have this approach. Admittedly, this is an approach that originated from a traditional waterfall way of doing work. And so by applying agile and lean and DevOps principles, we're able to modernize this approach and improve the ability of IT service management to play a more important role in how we deliver services. So that's what ITIL 4 does. It modernizes IT service management. It helps us address all the challenges that we're facing today in terms of being able to marry together all of these different frameworks and methods and approaches, because it's not ITIL or lean or ITIL or DevOps. It's ITIL and agile and lean and DevOps and SRE. And also the technological challenges that we're facing in terms of not only how to, manage both a kind of traditional monolithic application, but also now these microservices and these cloud-based services. So lots of challenges we need to address, and we also have to get better at utilizing technology in order to execute and perform IT service management practices. So it's all good stuff. Now, that's great, right? But I love this quote from Peter Senge. He says, vision without systems thinking is like painting lovely pictures of the future with no deep understanding of the forces that must be mastered to move from here to there, right? So it all sounds great, but how are we going to do this? So one of the coolest things I think that ITIL 4 introduces is the service value system. Now, the concept of a system, right? Systems thinking is not new. Deming was talking about systems thinking, 70 some years ago. The DevOps community has been talking about systems thinking for the last 10 years. It's something that is very prevalent as part of the DevOps community's conversation. Also, for those of you who are familiar with ISO, the concept of a system isn't new, right? There's a quality management system. There's the ISO service management system in ISO 20000. So it's awesome that ITIL 4 brings this concept of a value system into ITIL. So what is this value system? Well, let's look at the inputs and the outcome. First of all, the inputs are opportunity and demand, whether that be opportunity for new products and services or demand for our existing products and services. The outcome, right, the result that we're looking to achieve is value. And value is co-created, and I think that's a really important concept that we all need to embrace, and it's actually one of the little tweaks that you'll see in ITIL 4 to the definition of the term service, that it enables value co-creation. Everyone today who is a consumer of a service can't just sit back and say, okay, service provider, you figure it out. We have to provide requirements. We have to provide, we have to participate in design activities. We have to provide feedback. We have to be part of that fast feedback loop that is going to enable organizations to meet our needs. We can't just be dissatisfied. We have to speak up. So the components of this service value system include guiding principles. Now, guiding principles were introduced in ITIL Practitioner. So we saw a little bit of a sneak peek into ITIL 4 with the ITIL Practitioner publication, which is and will continue to be an invaluable tool that we can use going forward. It's really a, think of it as a good tool that's in your toolkit for making the transition from 3 to 4. Governance, and I like to think about things like principles and governance as like guardrails that you can put in place within your organization. In order for organizations to be agile today, we really can't, have these traditional, very hierarchical, very procedure-driven ways of working. We've got to just provide people some guardrails, right? To say, like, look, this is how we think, this is how we work, this is how we do things in this organization. Now, within that, let's figure out how to best deliver value to our customers. At the heart of the service value system is the service value chain, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. We have practices, and then we have continual improvement. And I want to say it now, and I'm going to say it again later in the presentation. If you don't come away from this presentation understanding that continual improvement is key, quite honestly, I don't know what more I could have done. Continual improvement in ITIL 4 is introduced as part of the service value system. It's an activity within the service value chain. It's a practice within ITIL 4. All of this, at the end of the day, is going to become real in your organizations through continual improvement. There's not a stop doing ITIL 3, here and start doing ITIL 4 there. It's a journey, and continual improvement is a key aspect of that journey. So let's talk about the service value chain. And the service value chain is an evolution from the service life cycle. I talked about the fact that the service life cycle had a little bit of a gap in it. And we know that, right? Anybody who ever had to do a training class or have a conversation with somebody in the development part of your organization or a project manager, they didn't necessarily see themselves in that service life cycle. So the service value chain really reflects the full life cycle. So from the point at which somebody has an idea for a new product or service or a change to an existing product or service to the point where we have a consumer who is in fact getting value, is achieving the results they want from that particular service. These activities reflect that full life cycle. Part of the beauty of the service value chain, and one of the things that's going to take everybody a second to wrap their head around, is the fact that we're going to want to take these value chain activities and see them as linear. And in fact, they're not. The value chain, these activities can be deconstructed and reorganized into value streams that make sense for your organization. So for example, if you have a customer who has called your service desk and asked a question and you're able to provide that answer, then really you're using the engage activity. All engagement activity happens in that engage activity, and you're using the deliver and support. You're providing the support that customer needs. We don't have to go through all the other activities in order to deliver that answer to our customers. Conversely, if we're developing a new software product and we have, a new set of requirements that are coming in for, again, a completely new product and service, we will in fact go through, from engage in terms of getting those requirements from our customers through, design, we'll build, we'll transition, and then we'll deliver and support. Deliver and support is really where we are in the production environment, right? We're live, we're up and rolling. So think of deliver as delivering our services, not necessarily delivering our services to production, but we are in fact in production and we're delivering our services. We also have some activities that don't necessarily require design and transition on a transaction by transaction basis. So for example, if you have kind of a standard configuration for a laptop for a new employee in your organization, through the engage activity, we'll determine that, hey, we have a new employee starting, and as part of the onboarding process, we need to get them a new computer. We will obtain that new computer, and then we'll, deliver and support the services associated with, our employee using that new computer. Notice that plan and improve overlap with those that kind of a center cube of activities, and as with anything else, our plan activities are going to tend to be more strategic in their approach to doing things. Our improve activities are going to be ongoing, constantly looking at, for our existing products and services, for our ways of working, how can we continuously improve? And also notice down at the bottom that feedback loop. That fast feedback loop is critical. For any of you that are familiar with DevOps introduces 3 ways, right? The 3 ways are about flow, which is really about systems thinking and understanding those value systems, and how can we, as quickly as possible, right, deliver value to our customers. And the second way is feedback. So we see that fast feedback loop back through these activities to let us continually improve. These activities, again, are not linear in nature. There's going to be a temptation to look at it that way, but over time, we'll learn a lot more about this concept of value streams and kind of deconstructing those activities into value streams and performing only those activities that we need to in order to achieve that fast flow. And these value chain activities are also supported by practices. And historically in ITIL, we talked about this concept of a process, and ITIL's been very process oriented. But one of the things that ITIL 4 introduces is the idea of the 4 dimensions, and the fact that the 4 dimensions, when we bring them together with a clear purpose, with a clear, set of objectives, we have a practice. Now, these 4 dimensions might look super familiar to you, right? Because in ITIL 3 2011, we had the 4 Ps of service design. They've evolved a little bit. So we now have organizations and people, and organizations is introduced here really in recognition of the fact that organizational structures are changing tremendously today. We see organizations, especially organizations that are leveraging practices like Agile and Lean and DevOps, moving to more product-oriented teams. You're seeing much more of a focus on cross-functional teams, breaking down those silos, and again, really changing the organizational structure in terms of how people interact within the organization. So organizations and people, information and technology, which hopefully makes sense to everybody, partners and suppliers, we're all reliant on them today. And then we see the introduction of value streams and processes. Again, processes is very much a key concept that we're very, very familiar with in ITIL 3 2011, and the concept of processes isn't going away. The processes are still going to be there. We're still going to be defining and improving processes, but we also have to recognize the importance of understanding the greater value stream, understanding that those processes underpin a value stream. So rather than having kind of a narrow, siloed view from the perspective of one individual process, let's understand that multiple processes underpin a greater value system that enables that end-to-end flow across the value chain. So there's a taxonomy here, right? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, that we've got this greater value chain, which is the, generic activities that represent the work that we do within our organizations. Those value chain activities can be deconstructed into value streams in order to make sure that we're performing that work as efficiently and effectively as we possibly can. And those value streams are then underpinned by processes, which is where we're going to have much more of the kind of detailed micro view of how work is being done and the decisions that are being made in order to perform that work. And those processes then can be automated, right? Can be proceduralized and then can be automated. So we'll all in time get very, very comfortable with that taxonomy from, value chain through value streams and into processes. Again, all together, these 4 dimensions represent a practice come together to equal a practice. That understanding that, again, it's not just about the process, it's understanding that we need the right people who are working together in the right ways, leveraging technology, interfacing appropriately with our partners in order to really develop that capability that we need in order to provide services to our customers. So every practice supports multiple service value chain activities. There's not a traditional, in ITIL 2011, there was this very strict interpretation that certain practices were service strategy, certain processes were service strategy processes, service design, et cetera. You'll find as we go forward that a given practice may actually support multiple of the value chain activities, and in some cases, all of the value chain activities. So you see here the ITIL 4, the ITIL practices that are being introduced in ITIL 4 practitioner, expect that as ITIL evolves and as we move on to the higher parts of the qualification scheme, we'll start to see additional practices introduced. A key thing to keep in mind here is that these practices really aren't, practices that are only derived from ITIL or have their roots in ITIL. They really have very diverse origins. So ITIL 4 is really relying on and pulling in practices that really come out of general business management practices. An example is workforce and talent management. It's something that ITIL's never really talked about before, but certainly it's something you're talking about a lot in your organizations. We've got traditional service management practices, and then we've got our technical management practices, and those are really derived from the great work that we're seeing happening in the infrastructure community, in the DevOps community. We're seeing those, a lot of those kind of, and I'm going to translate them into automation practices being brought into play here. Don't worry, if you attend an ITIL 4 foundation class, you're not going to have to understand what all of these practices are. The ones that we bolded a little bit are the practices that are covered in ITIL 4 foundation. But the ITIL 4 foundation publication, which again I mentioned is kind of available for pre-order now, does provide very, very high level overviews of these practices. I'm going to talk in a minute about my ITIL. And one of the things that's going to be kind of cool about ITIL 4 is that the details of these practices are actually going to live online as part of my ITIL. There's going to be additional resources that you can go out and get. So all the information you get about these practices going forward isn't necessarily going to come out in the form of a book. And hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Books, right, become obsolete very, very quickly. There's a cost associated and a life cycle associated with publishing books that makes it difficult to evolve them quickly. So by having this information online, it's going to allow this guidance to evolve much more quickly as we go forward. And it's also going to allow, ultimately community participation in evolving these practices. So continual improvement is key. Again, we see continual improvement as a part of, as a component of the greater service value system. We see it as an activity in the service value chain. It is a practice in and of itself. Continual improvement is key. And the underlying message that we've been hearing for years remains the same, that organizations need to look to ITIL in order to adopt a service management approach. So a value-focused, a customer-oriented, a service-oriented approach to doing business, but then adapt the guidance to meet your organization's specific needs and circumstances. Now, how do we do that? I love this quote from Mary Poppendieck, who is really a recognized expert in the context of lean, especially in the application of software development. Mary says the principles are underlying truths that don't change over time and space, while practices are the application of principles to a particular situation. So that message of adopt and adapt is very prevalent here, and understanding that adaptation, that evolution that you go through with your practices is going to be ongoing, because it has to reflect your organization's circumstances and needs and goals and objectives. So what are the principles that we can use going forward? ITIL 4 introduces guiding principles, and those of you who are familiar with ITIL practitioner, you've seen these guiding principles before. There's been a little bit of an evolution with the guiding principles as we come into ITIL 4. Many of them remain the same. So that idea of focusing on value and understanding that value is co-created, understanding that value is from the perspective of your customer. At the end of the day, you can say all you want that you deliver great services. It's up to your customer to actually validate, right, that your services are enabling them to achieve the results they want. Start where you are. Such a critical message. You are where you are right now. There's not going to be any stop doing ITIL V3, start doing ITIL 4. you're just here, right? You're here now, your organization is where it is, and we all need to just progress iteratively with feedback as we make our way through our continual improvement journey. Progress iteratively is such a key concept in Agile. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Agile, that's a little homework assignment for you, is to learn more about Agile. And there's just tons of great information available. That's something we can certainly help you with. But that idea of understanding that we've got to make smaller, more incremental improvements, that we have to really move from this idea that we're going to plan this perfect project and then we're going to take however long it takes in order to, get our deliverables ready, and then we're going to have this big bang, right, magical and perfect implementation of our new process or our new product. It doesn't work today. We can't do that. We've got to progress iteratively, and we've got to listen to the feedback that we get as we're introducing those incremental changes. We've got to work together. We've got to collaborate. We've got to be transparent about what we're doing. I know that many of you are starting to use things like Kanban boards in order to, and stand-ups, right, in order to kind of get together and talk about what you've got working on, and just being much more transparent, both within our teams and with our customers in terms of what we're doing. Think and work holistically. The 4 dimensions, right, are a really good framework. The idea of systems thinking, right, is really critical in this day and age. Keep it simple and practical, which is just a lifelong message that I think we could all utilize. And new to ITIL 4, this is actually a principle that wasn't in ITIL Practitioner, is the idea to optimize and automate. It's a message we're hearing loud and clear within our organizations, and we're going to see it very much embraced as we go forward with ITIL 4. So what's this going to look like as we go forward? Well, think about it as a dovetail. And in this particular case, you can see that this isn't, the perfect, pristine, perfectly linear dovetail that maybe some of you think about, in the corners of the drawers in your furniture. It's not necessarily going to be a straight line. It's not necessarily going to be perfect, but ITIL is going to come together in the end. Today, because it's part of the education process, it's part of what we have to go through in order to differentiate, right, how these 2 approaches are different. We're talking about ITIL 3 2011, and we're talking about ITIL 4. As we go forward, right, down the road, it's just going to be ITIL again, right? We're going to get back to just calling it ITIL, right? ITIL is ITIL. You're going to figure out within your organizations how you're going to forge your way through this transition. I do want to say that I firmly believe that for some of you, you've got great ITIL 3 2011 initiatives underway. You need to continue that journey. What I do encourage everybody to look at is, what are those pieces of ITIL 4 that actually would serve you well and support that journey? So as an example, I firmly believe that the guiding principles are something that every single organization can start using today if you are not already using them. They will serve you well. They bring together the essence of Agile and Lean and DevOps and IT service management. So for all of you in your organizations who have these different activities going on, the guiding principles are infinitely practical, and again, will very much serve you well. I challenge each and every one of you to make them a part of your vocabulary, start using them, put posters on the walls, right? Enable everybody to embrace those guiding principles, and it'll kind of provide a good set of guardrails to help you all go forward in the same direction. I think the service value system concept will also serve you well as you go forward. The reality is that a lot of you are already talking about things like value chains and value streams. A lot of you certainly understand the concept of governance and the need to ensure that we're complying with laws and regulatory controls. The idea of elevating our processes to practices and understanding that we've got to consider all 4 dimensions. We can't just look at things from the process perspective. And then again, embracing and really learning effectively how to continually improve within our organizations. I mentioned the 3 ways in DevOps. I mentioned the first way is flow, the second way is fast feedback. And the third way is really about continual improvement and understanding the need to continually experiment and learn as we improve within our organizations, and understanding also that practice leads to mastery. So practicing good continual improvement methods like the continual improvement model, like the various, methodologies that we put in place in order to solve problems within our organizations and to manage continual improvement projects, those will serve you very, very well. So for now, we very much encourage you, continue your journey. Some of you have heard me say this before. Honor the past, accept your reality, look to the future. A lot of people have done a lot of good hard work in order to get your organization to where it is now. Start where you are. Don't second guess the efforts of the people who have come before you. Don't criticize the work of the folks that have come before you. It's really a great way to kind of doom your improvement initiatives going forward if you don't honor the past. Accept where you are, start where you are, and really draw from any and all frameworks and methods. And yes, even from multiple versions of ITIL to continue to improve. There's some bits and pieces of ITIL version 3 that are going to continue to serve us well for years to come. I have to say that I honestly still have my ITIL version 2 books, and within the last year pulled out a version 2 book in order to look something up that I remembered. Oh, I remember they had some interesting way of presenting this. So you're gonna kind of dovetail these together as you continually improve, and then look to the future and leverage my ITIL. So down in the bottom left corner of this slide, I've given a link for you to go out to the Access website. Anybody who has an ITIL certification, and anybody, with us, for example, if you've taken with ITIL Foundation with us, you actually get a free year, one year membership to the Access subscription service. Going forward, you're going to see my ITIL used a lot more. You're going to see today there are great papers, there's great case studies, there's a lot of great information out there that you can leverage. Going forward, you're going to see the details of the practices provided through my ITIL. And some of them are going to get rolled up into publications, but the living document, so to speak, is going to be in my ITIL. And rest assured that the core concepts remain intact. When you see ITIL 4 Foundation, you're going to see that there's these new key concepts that I've talked about today, but there's a lot of information that really reflects, information that was introduced in ITIL 3 2011 and has just been evolved a little bit in order to improve it and align it with concepts like agile and lean and DevOps. So your investments, all the hard work that you've put in to introducing ITIL in your organizations today are in fact going to be protected, and understand that there's not going to be any one right way for you to get through this transition. You're going to figure out within your organizations how to kind of dovetail all of this together. The key is that we all within this community just keep learning, right? And that doesn't mean only learning about ITIL. This presentation is about ITIL, and so we absolutely want to continue our ITIL education paths, but it will serve you well in this day and age to also learn about Agile, learn about Lean, learn about DevOps, learn about site reliability engineering, because really the high-performing organizations today are those organizations that are leveraging all of those modern ways of managing services. So the current reality, again, is that ITIL 4 Foundation goes live 2/28. We've got our first class coming up in February. The second tier courses in the qualification scheme will come out in the second half of 2019. There's kind of two aspects to the qualification scheme. There's managing professional and there is strategic leader. Managing professional is really for those individuals who are working within organizations. You're working in certain practices. You're involved in day-to-day performing the day-to-day performance of service management activities, right? You're doing that value chain. You're living that value chain. ITIL strategic leader is for those folks. I would say it's the difference between people who work in the practices and the people who work on the practices, as an example. So strategic leader is really looking at strategic planning, understanding how to develop the strategy, especially from a digital transformation standpoint in terms of how we manage these digital services, which is very, very different, right, than our traditional legacy approach to doing things. We do not have any details about these Tier 2 certifications at this time, other than some high-level descriptions of them. We'll be putting that information out on our website shortly. Again, we just literally yesterday got permission to start talking details about this. But we do expect that when ITIL 4 Foundation goes live, so 2/28, we'll see more detailed information about these second tier aspects of the qualification scheme. I do want to mention that there is a transition course. So for those of you who have 17 credits or you are an ITIL expert, what you will be able to do is take this one transition course, and there is an exam associated with that. And you will, in fact, be qualified or be designated as an ITIL managing professional. So you kind of get all of those managing professional certifications granted to you. If you want to take strategic leader, you will need to take this one strategic leadership course, right? Assuming you've, again, gone through transition, you've been designated as this managing professional, you'll need to take that strategic leadership course. I'm sure there's going to be a million questions about all of that, so I'll share that high-level information, and I'll let you all ask what additional detailed questions you might have about that. Again, more information to come. Here's where we don't necessarily see around the road in terms of the details of these second tier certifications, but that's part of the evolution, right? The other thing I want to say is that ITIL 3 2011 is going to live on until at the earliest June of 2020. So again, your journey can continue along both of those paths. You can, if you've got ITIL education going on now, continue to get that ITIL education. Get the education you need, right? If you need education now, don't wait. Just get the education you need, and know that you may selectively pull bits and pieces from ITIL 4 that help you on that journey. So we've got, again, we're excited, our first ITIL 4 Foundation class is coming up in February. We're also introducing a new class, and we talked about this in our last webinar, Value Stream Mapping Facilitator. As value stream mapping emerges, we're going to help everybody understand how to do that within their organizations. And we've also got an ITIL practitioner class coming up in June. And again, ITIL practitioners' focus is on the guiding principles, on continual improvement. So for those folks who really want to master continual improvement, managing the organizational change, better understanding how to communicate effectively as you move forward on your transition journey, ITIL practitioner will very, very much serve you well. It's a really highly experiential course. It's quite frankly one of our favorites. So we're excited to have that on our calendar again going forward. So Lisa, what do we got?
Donna, we have a lot. So I'm trying to organize things for you.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. Well, actually, if you can go back to slide 14.
Oh, okay. Actually, I just launched I launched a poll real quickly. While you were talking, I just launched a quick poll, just so I know that was a lot of information, but I'm just curious to kind of see what everybody thinks before I go forward answering questions. So. And
my favorite response to your temperature is from Jason. I'm in Orlando and I feel you, Donna.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
And then I should have warned everyone that our Donna, that might be my sound. Oh, I might be having a sound issue. But our our Donna, being so cold, had 2 cups of coffee. So
I
that
know.
was
Well, yeah.
a lot of fun information. Okay, and then we've got several, well, the poll's up. We have several of our courseware licensing folks online, and
Yes.
I have a lot of questions about that. So
Okay.
the material for courseware licensing partners, it will be available for you to start a class on February 25th, and the exams become available on the 28th.
Yes. And, you know, our materials are accredited, right? So we've made it, we've created our materials, they've made their way through the accreditation process, so they are very much on deck and ready to go. We're actually doing a little bit of a train the trainer for our training community coming up shortly. So just as kind of worldwide, Axel has facilitated train the trainer sessions for the training community, we're gearing up our trainers as well. So I'm going to do kind of a first run of our materials and, you know, maybe refine it a little bit, but yeah, I'm very, very excited that our materials are ready to roll. So our response, I'm gonna kind of close the poll. I love it. Some of you are continuing with 3, right on, right? That's continue your journey. 17% we're chomping at the bit. Love that too. A little bit of both. That's awesome. 26% of you, and I personally, obviously you heard me talk about it, but I think if you use nothing else but the guiding principles, right, from ITIL 4, you're on. It's going to help you with your V3 journey. Need to learn more? That's fair. And 11% not sure, right? Got to think about this. You're back. You may be back a little in that little earlier stages of the change cycle, and that's okay. That's part of your journey.